Australia's exposure to China. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.Heise here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. I have my stein of coffee, and I thought we'd go through this article written by Jason Murphy from news.com.au. He's discussing Australia's beef with China, and if we can afford to retaliate. Now, I've discussed this, over and over again in many videos, and I keep going back to my favorite website, and I know the data's a couple of years old, but it still shows you the large portion of our exports that are going to China. 35%. The large portion of our imports that are coming from China. And when we look at the complexity of what we're actually producing compared to what we're importing, look at all these advanced things that we're importing, and look at all these things that we're exporting. It makes it quite clear that the Australian economy isn't as advanced as we would hope. We really are on the back of natural resources, and we're quite dependent on China. Which is concerning, particularly with Australia seeming to take the lead on this pandemic inquiry from the UN, which surprises me. Well, no, it doesn't, but the reasoning behind it is questionable because we haven't been impacted health-wise so much, but economically we're about to take a big hit. So let's have a look at this. The beef brawl with China now has a barley barn on top, and potentially an iron ore issue as well. First, China stopped buying red meat from 4 of our best abattoirs. Now it is threatening to whack a tariff on our grain exports. What can we do? Can we afford to retaliate? Let's look at the numbers. When it comes to trade, China is our best friend, our number one, our boy. But we find ourselves in an unequal relationship. Australia is not China's number one. It's kind of awkward, actually. We're only their 5th best friend for imports behind Korea, Japan, Germany, and the US. There you go. And we're their 12th best friend when it comes to exports. 11 countries buy more stuff than we do from China. The trade relationship with China has blossomed very quickly, as the next graph shows. Here's our exports to China. Here's our imports. You can just see, look, just from 95. We're their 12th best friend when it comes to exports. 11 countries buy more than we do. 15 years ago, our trade with China was small. Now we swap tens of billions of dollars worth of goods each month. Lots of Aussies, directly or indirectly, owe their job, house, and car to China's ferocious appetite for our exports. But is China as dependent on us? Well, no, they're not. No, they're not. And here's another thing. I mean, this may be, you could understand, this may be the first exposure some people have to these concepts. It's not really discussed much in news, is it? Or maybe now more so. And this is good. So the big kid in the schoolyard. Australia can at any time decide to cut off the relationship, but it simply would not matter as much to China as it would to us. This is a natural result of a basic fact. They are a very big country. China has 1.4 billion people. That's 56 times bigger than us. They are the size of 56 Australians. When you take size and have money, as China did in the last 2 decades, you get heft. China is the number one trade partner for many countries, not just us. China is powerful. We can't change that fact. We need to decide how to deal with it. This is new territory for us. We were trade buddies with the UK for a very long time. Then for a while, we traded with Japan and the US. Never before have we had a major trade relationship with a country who was not also a major ally. This is the first time in our history that our dominant trade partner is not also our dominant security partner, said then Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull in 2018. We must see this as an opportunity. What? We must see this as an opportunity, not a risk. I think he's overestimating the influence we can have. I think that's just spin. Just spin for the cameras. That sounds like normal politicians speak. How can this be an opportunity? Let's have another look at the top 5 trade partners for China. The US, Germany, Korea, and Japan. That's a list of allies, our allies. Australia has stuck its neck out on the pandemic investigation. The Prime Minister himself made some pretty bold comments about sending in WHO staff with the powers of weapons inspectors. That was a bit dumb. It was not that a powerful WHO is a bad idea. It's just going it alone on these ideas allows China to pick us off one by one. The West, the free world, needs to act as a unified group. We should stick with our allies. Maybe we were acting on behalf of our allies who are now acting more unilaterally, like the US. Maybe it's time Australia started putting our own national interests first. The EU is taking a petition to the World Health Assembly. Well, how long is the EU going to last? How long is the EU going to last, guys? It would be smarter to raise pressure on China by backing that. China will soon be the biggest economy in the world, and it is the biggest trading country in the world. That's a key observation, because trade is how they got rich. By first making our clothing and our plastic toys and now our phones and computers, China went from a poor country to a moderately rich one. Keeping that wealth going depends on trade. Not trade with Australia alone, but trade with the whole world. The opportunity that Malcolm Turnbull spoke of is the chance to use global pressure on China. Getting into a fight with them all by ourselves is a guaranteed way to lose. And that's an interesting point. But we're in a different world. More countries acting by themselves. And let's have a bit of a look. Let's have a look at China's economy. We'll compare that to Australia. We'll look at China. Yeah, some of the numbers, guys. So they're 33rd in the world for economic complexity. If anything, that's gone up. 2.41 trillion in exports and 1.54 trillion in imports. Their GDP is 16.8k per person. You can see here, well, broadcasting equipment is one of their biggest exports, along with computers, office machinery. You have lots of people who are arguing for tariffs in Australia to help protect our industries. And one example is computers. I've got 6 screens in front of me. I've got another computer there. These screens are so cheap nowadays than they were in the past. I can get high-end graphics cards and components so cheap. RAM so much cheaper than they were. You've got a whole lot of people that don't remember the 80s, or were too young to remember the 80s, and how expensive things were. And another argument I put to you is those calling for tariffs to help protect industries in Australia. Are you a fan of Jerry Harvey and the GST he introduced on all goods and services coming from overseas? With it's $1,000 eBay GST that he pushed for. Because that is the exact same thing as a tariff. We pay for it, the average people. And I think it's a bit of arrogance to assume that Australia has the capacity to make goods at the same standard that China can. The only computer Australia ever made was utterly garbage. Utterly garbage. It'll take a while for us to reach the same technological capacity. Look at what they're importing. Integrated circuits. Can you even make an integrated circuit in Australia? What we have is a less complex economy, and we do have some manufacturing, more boutique style manufacturing. And a lot of capital needs to be invested in this if we're even going to have a chance to, let's jump back to Australia. Let's have a look at some of our exports or imports. Look at what we're importing. Let's see where our computers are coming from. Where does Australia import computers from? Let's have a look. There you go. 71% from China. Computers are a big part of our economy, guys. They're a huge part of our economy. What happens if we suddenly introduce a tariff on that? That's going to have flow-through effects. It's going to make it more expensive for Australia. We need to find ways to facilitate the manufacturing of things here in Australia. Let's look at our cars. Where does Australia import cars from in 2017? Because we don't have our own industry. Japan, number 1. Look at China, doesn't even rank. Where is China? It's not even on here. So there you go. I like my Toyota guys, don't get me wrong. But we don't have the capacity to manufacture that. What if there's trade issues with Japan, South Korea, Thailand? So there you go, guys. definitely a challenging future for Australia, and well, there will be economic ramifications for what's going on with China. As always, let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. Please like, share and subscribe to the channel. If you're a fan and you'd like to support us, there are a few ways you can. You can join us on YouTube or Patreon. You can support us via affiliate links at Amazon or eBay. You can buy merch from HeiseSays, use Gold Pass from the Perth Mint, or support us via PayPal. Take care. I'll see you next time.